This is the Good Government Show.
I think the biggest challenge to deploying autonomous vehicles hasn't been regulatory. It hasn't been financial. It's really been the technology. This is very difficult to do. It is relatively easier to get from 0 to 98% proficiency than to get to that last 2%. They're moving at the speed of innovation, which means they could be here tomorrow. They could never be here at all. The truth is that we don't really know. I think good government is addressing the needs of the people that could only be addressed by a governmental entity. That's good governance, when you exceed the expectations of the people to meet a pressing public policy issue. We, through government, can make this country better and people's lives better.
The car pulls up, you get into the back seat. The car pulls away, the blinker goes on. You turn right, the car continues down the street. A typical day in a taxi. I forgot to mention, you're in a driverless car. No driver. Get ready, folks. This is the future. Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm Dave Martin. First, help us share the message of good government by liking us and sharing us where we are on social media. Make sure to review us. Don't forget, and share our show everywhere. We all need to talk about good government. I attended the National League of Cities conference in Washington and attended a session on the future of transportation. Then I got to have an in-depth conversation with Daniel Greene. He's the Senior Director of Consumer Protection and Product Safety for the National Consumers League. And we got to talk about the past, present, and future of driverless cars. My overall impression after talking with Dan Greene was, cool, okay, I'm ready to take a ride. As Dan will tell you, he got used to it pretty quickly. Like any emerging technology, it takes a while to catch on. It took America about 20 years to give up their horses for the horseless carriage. As we figure out driverless cars, there's a lot of healthy discussion about them. The United Nations just put out a new set of regulations for driverless cars. Waymo, one of the leading driverless car companies, says driverless cars are safer. But in May, they had to recall cars because the cars didn't respond to road flooding conditions. One study in Texas found that driverless cars would ease traffic congestion. But in Atlanta, a driverless Waymo car was seen stopping in front of a fire truck. This is not a simple issue, but governments across the world are trying to figure it out. So sit back if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road, and listen to what could be your future. And who knows, in that future, you may not have to keep your eyes on the road on the way to work. That's all coming up with Dan Greene of the National Consumers League. HelloNation is our partner here at the Good Government Show. This is a new direction from CGI Digital. HelloNation is CGI's new online digital magazine that showcases the best of cities across the nation. We'd all prefer if good news traveled faster. At HelloNation, positive stories don't just get told, they get amplified. HelloNation helps businesses, leaders, and communities share positive stories that matter, building trust, credibility, and meaningful connection. Through professionally produced podcasts, digital features, and targeted distribution, HelloNation positions you as the answer regular folks are looking for, while expanding and scaling your digital footprint across the platforms that people trust. Good news deserves momentum. Your city or your business can help spread the word of good news across the nation. At HelloNation, they don't have advertisers, they have advertisers. Editorial content from trusted community leaders and cities that are spreading the good news. Let HelloNation lift you up and lead the conversation. That's HelloNation. Once you wrap up this episode of the Good Government Show, give a listen to our friends over at Good News for Lefties. This daily podcast highlights news stories that show there's more good news out there. Other people in government are really trying to do the right thing. That's Good News for Lefties. Listen where you're listening now. Welcome to the Good Government Show. I'm happy to have with me Daniel Greene.
Hello.
You are the Senior Director of Consumer Protection and Product Safety for something called the National Consumers League.
Yep.
Do I have your title correct?
You do. You did a great job.
Thank you very much. What is the National Consumers League and how do you help government?
Yeah, the National Consumers League is a 501c3 nonprofit just representing the average everyday American in their best interests, whether that's healthcare, product safety, prevention of fraud, opposing child labor, whatnot. We cover it, and we work with our federal legislators and federal regulators on trying to enshrine those policies into law and regulation.
Sometimes do we have to steer them a little bit in the right direction?
Absolutely. I think what you will find if you work particularly with legislators, but also some regulators, is that they're often policy executors, the policy expertise is very much driven by folks like us and other organizations and other special interest groups and even businesses that directly interact with these issues or policies on a day-to-day basis, who can help inform those policymakers as to exactly what they should and should not be doing.
So we are here at the National League of Cities, and we were just we met here at a breakout session called Transportation and Infrastructure Services, a federal advocacy committee meeting. And you were here to talk basically about driverless vehicles.
Yep.
Okay. So this is what I want to talk about. Driverless vehicles. Never been in one.
Yep.
I live in New York City. Mm-hmm. We don't have any. I take the subway, which is not driverless. Tell me where we are in the world of driverless vehicles. Like, this clearly is heading our way in a big way, but where do we stand in driverless vehicles?
They're on the horizon. There has been decades of research and development, tens of $billions invested in this industry, and we are seeing these vehicles deployed at increasing scale across the country, predominantly in cities. San Francisco is certainly, I think, the capital of autonomous vehicle development and deployment. We're seeing it in Austin. We're seeing it in Vegas. We're seeing it in Tempe. We're seeing it in Atlanta and DC. And it's frankly going to become more common and frequent for folks to be seeing these vehicles in their average everyday life.
So I have not seen these in my average everyday life. And I know nothing about this. I mean, do you stand on the side of the road and wave your arm like you do in New York City to cab? And does the car pull up? How does it work?
It's more similar to a ride sharing company like Uber and Lyft.
You got to have an app.
Exactly. You'll hail a vehicle. There will be a checkpoint in which you will meet that vehicle, get in, press a button confirming you are who you say you are, and then that vehicle does all the work from there on out.
And do you sit in the front seat or the back seat?
You sit in the back seat and you will see the steering wheel turn left and right and the blinkers come on and off, and it is a very surreal experience. But what amazed me most the first time I took an autonomous vehicle was how comfortable and how quickly I became comfortable.
Okay.
It took a matter of minutes before I was kind of just enjoying the ride.
How many rides have you taken in a driverless vehicle?
I think I've taken 2 or 3.
Oh, okay. All right.
All as part of as a former congressional staffer on congressional delegation trips.
Okay.
Out in San Francisco.
So it was always in San Francisco.
Yep.
Now let's just talk about San Francisco. I've been there a few times. Mm-hmm. Not a great driving city.
Tough environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Tough place to ride. And some of those hills, can be challenging. What was your feeling? I mean, you said it takes a few minutes to get comfortable, but just really a few minutes?
It truly did. And what it reminded me was the first time I took an Uber.
Okay.
Where I grew up in a family when I was a teenager, we were not supposed to be riding in our friends' cars. Like if we needed a ride somewhere, our parents were driving us. It was that level of trust where our parents didn't know who these kids were, if they were good drivers, their vehicles were safe. So the first time I got into just a normal Uber and sat in the back of a stranger's vehicle who we did not talk to, who then drove us someplace was surreal, but you got comfortable with it quickly. Same experience when I was in an autonomous vehicle.
And do you feel like you're just in a regular car after a few minutes?
No, I don't think you ever feel like you're in a regular car.
Okay.
For me, I could feel the driving differences.
Yeah.
The braking and acceleration was a little bit more abrupt, which is something I know they've been working on. You would see things and you just couldn't tell if the vehicle could see them. Like if you're with a driver, you can kind of identify if they've seen that person who's now crossing the road. So no, it never quite felt like the same as a real driver.
Oh, well, I was at a cab last night and a Lyft last night in New York City, and I said, where does it have you going, through the tunnel or over the bridge? He goes, well, the tunnel. I said, don't take the tunnel, take the bridge. Now, you can't do that in a driverless vehicle, though, can you?
Not that I know of.
All right. So let's just talk about safety.
Sure.
Are these cars safe? And if they are safe, how safe are they? Yeah. And compared to obviously a regular car?
It's a reasonable question. I think it's the first question policymakers should ask. Frankly, we don't know.
Okay.
We just don't know. And the reason we don't know is because there haven't been enough vehicle mile travel to actually assess their level of safety compared to a human driver.
Okay.
And then there's been a bunch of really interesting studies that simulate every human caused crash in a certain area and how an autonomous vehicle would have performed that have provided some promising results. There's other studies that have found that AVs have been involved in incidents and crashes at rates 6 times a human driver. Truth be told, it's just too early to make a definitive conclusion.
You mentioned in the session we had that you mentioned a couple of deaths.
Yeah.
No death is acceptable,
right.
But people die in in cars. Is there any parallel that anybody can draw between I know you just answered this, between cars and driverless vehicles?
You're absolutely right. There are approximately 40,000 deaths and I think well over 1 million injuries each year associated with motor vehicle crashes.
Okay.
Thus far, there have been 3 deaths associated with autonomous vehicles, one of which just could not reasonably be at the fault of the autonomous vehicle. So it's really 2 deaths in which there's a question. And there have been some injuries and some severe injuries. But with the amount of vehicle miles traveled, there's really no apples to apples comparison.
Okay. It's
really just anecdotal at this point.
How many more miles do we need to get out of driverless vehicles before we can answer that question?
Yeah, potentially millions more.
Okay.
It's a little bit far off, as well as the fact that these vehicles are operating in very controlled environment.
Okay.
They're well-mapped areas. Sometimes they'll have a fallback ready user who can take over the wheel. So it's going to be tricky to draw that comparison for a while.
Where are we headed with this? What's the next step? Is it just to roll it out in more cities, or is it and get the numbers out there and let the numbers fall where they may, or is there another plan?
I think so. I think the goal is, with the level of technology and sophistication we have now, to continue to map out different cities, provide these ride-sharing services in the areas in which they'll be most profitable and the most revenue can be generated, but truly to achieve the level of proficiency that I think the industry will want to be comfortable to deploy these more broadly at higher scale. They're going to need some technological jumps. I think the biggest challenge to deploying autonomous vehicles hasn't been regulatory. It hasn't been financial. It's really been the technology. This is very difficult to do. Back in 2017, when autonomous vehicle legislation was first seriously being considered on the Hill, you had Lyft that was coming out and saying that they thought 50% of their rides were going to be driverless by 2021. General Motors announcing and Ford announcing that they were expecting to have mass production of autonomous vehicles by 2020, 2021. There was nothing at the federal level or the state level or investment. I mean, there's been billions of dollars invested. There was nothing there that stopped it. It's just the technology was harder than they anticipated. And I think we still need some more technological jumps to reach before we get there, but we will get there, in my opinion. And I don't think it's that far off.
What's the technological holdbacks?
It's just it is relatively easier to get from 0 to 98% proficiency than to get to that last 2% proficiency of all those different edge cases that you just could never expect. Like your vehicle driving past a EDM rave and all the cell service is down because of it. Or just some freak incident that you can never expect that nonetheless these companies will be liable for if their vehicle doesn't perform safely.
For the most part, can they turn left and can they stop at the red light?
They can, and they have been able to do so, frankly, since before I was legally allowed to drive.
Okay, so a while.
Yeah.
Is someone monitoring all these cars somewhere in a computer screen somewhere? Or do they just put them out on the street and go, yeah, good luck?
But the companies are, but in terms of some sort of independent entity with an obligation to protect the public interest, nothing at that level of sophistication. NHTSA is the federal agency with authority, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Okay.
NHTSA is the federal government agency charged with ensuring motor vehicle safety. And they don't have a situation war room where they have all these monitors. It is literally, they get a complaint about a vehicle operating in a way that wasn't safe, and maybe they'll send an inquiry to the company and check, maybe not. But that's kind of the way we're regulating this at the federal level.
How is the National Consumers League helping NHTSA to make sure that we are trouble-free?
We're partnering with both our legislative partners, but also our regulatory friends at NHTSA to provide them recommendations on how we could be proactively ensuring that we create an environment in which we allow these promising, innovative technologies to be deployed, but in a manner that's consistent with our fundamental values of safety, accessibility, workforce protection, and whatnot. So you're
trying to get all the ships steering in the same direction.
I think so. And I think fundamentally for the technology to succeed, it not only has to be commercially successful, but it will be rejected by the public if we don't have these safety issues and some of these general frustrations that sometimes arise with these technologies addressed.
You mentioned San Francisco. What other cities are really at the forefront of driverless technology?
Yeah, Austin is going to be up there, Tempe, Vegas, Atlanta, Washington, D.C. DC, we're starting to see them deployed. Pittsburgh was a big hub for a while. Of course, Detroit, Michigan, we got a lot of folks there in Dearborn and whatnot.
Are they pro driverless vehicles in Detroit?
Yeah, they're, the auto industry really did, and I think still does, see autonomous vehicles as just, it is a big leap in transportation technologies that they want to be at the forefront of if we're going to continue to be one of the most innovative places to produce automobiles.
Is this something that I would buy myself sometime in 1 to 50 years? I'd have my own driverless vehicle in the driveway?
Elon Musk thinks you may be able to if you buy a Tesla.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Yeah. He has this concept of you'll be able to buy your Tesla, and then when you drive it to work and park it, that vehicle will then be able to go perform driverless ride share services all across that local community up until you need to drive home. It'll pull up to you, you'll drive it home, and then you'll plug it in for the night. So that may be the only foreseeable private purchase use case I could see. I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to see these vehicles deployed as either delivery vehicles or ride share vehicles.
You talked about Ford and General Motors. Who are the big names in driverless vehicles?
Yeah, it is Waymo, which is Google, and it is Zoox, which is Amazon. We also have Aurora, which is an autonomous trucking company operating in Texas. Those are the
When
larger
you say trucking,
players.
are we talking about the big,
Oh yeah, 18-wheelers, the heavy freight folks. Yep.
See, here's what makes me nervous, and maybe I'm wrong, but you've got a fleet of vehicles out there with no one watching that ride and no kind of backup. Tell me what I'm missing.
So,
because you said there's some of these cars where there's a driver there that just kind of sits there with their hands folded, and if there's a crisis, they push a button and then they take over. But for the rest of them, good luck.
And that is a significant part of the policy fight, because you're right in the way in which commercial trucks that these vehicles are contemplating as being deployed in autonomous form is without any sort of fallback ready user.
Right.
And the extent to which that vehicle has an issue, the expectation is the technology is going to be so sophisticated that that vehicle can either pull over or mitigate the risk or alert a remote operator who may not even be based in the United States, by the way,
of course,
to help address the issue. A lot of the safety community and some of the labor unions who are often at the forefront of safety innovations are arguing that there should be affirmative obligation that there is a person who can perform that function. There was a bill at Governor Newsom's desk several years ago that would have required that in the state of California that was actually vetoed. So that's a very much part of the policy discussion.
Do they just stop where they are? Do they have a pullover fail safe? I mean, how does that work?
The interesting thing is every company is going to address it a little bit differently. Because
you don't want the car just to stop, in the middle lane on 95.
Yeah, the engineering term of art and the regulatory and policy term of art is minimal risk condition.
Okay.
So whenever the vehicle encounters a malfunction or it's operating outside of the conditions for which it's designed, the vehicle is supposed to have a mechanism to transition to a minimal risk condition that more often than not is going to require the vehicle to pull over. But there's other instances where the vehicle may just have to stop with its hazards on if it's malfunctioning at an intersection or something. There's a whole host of different possibilities. Have
any of these just kind of stopped in the middle of a left turn on a four-way intersection?
Just a couple weeks ago, there was a very troubling incident in Austin, Texas, in which a Waymo stopped in front of an ambulance that was responding to a mass shooting. And that vehicle was unable to navigate its way out for approximately a minute and a half. And a police officer actually had to get out and it appears to have manually steered that vehicle away. So yes, these types of troubling incidents
And these are all things we need to work on.
Yes.
And where does the current administration stand and the Department of Transportation stand on driverless vehicles? Are they proponents or are they skeptical?
They're proponents, and they're very bullish on trying to address some of the perceived regulatory barriers to deploying these vehicles.
Okay.
Under current law, you are not permitted to deploy a motor vehicle into interstate commerce unless it complies with all safety standards, which makes sense.
Sure.
Well, there's some 40-odd safety standards that either directly regulate a manual control like a steering wheel or brake pedal or a gear shifter, reference those manual controls, or reference a human driver. So if you want to deploy an autonomous vehicle without those features, a steering wheel, windshield wipers, or side view mirrors, federal regulations actually impede you from doing so, which is what this administration is really looking to modernize.
So when you talk about, people behind the wheel, and we've all done this, you're texting, you're on your phone, you're looking out the window, you're trying to keep the kids quiet in the back seat. Are people driving cars sometimes a bad idea? And is this a solution for things like texting while you're on your phone, keeping your kids quiet?
Objectively, humans have problems driving safely. Let's just be frank.
Sure.
They get distracted. They make poor decisions. They drive dumb.
40,000
deaths a year, over 1 million injuries.
Right.
A large percentage of that is attributable to human factors. Autonomous vehicles are one of the potential solutions, but we have a whole host of really promising safety technologies that are already available and have already performed at a level of proficiency that we know they're safe.
Backup cameras, noise when you get too close to another vehicle.
Exactly. Advanced driving assistance systems, driver monitoring systems, even drunk
when I'm
driving
in my daughter's
prevention.
car, if I change lanes without signaling, it beeps.
Lane departure warning and assist that can even intervene. Even drunk driving prevention technology, passive technology that can detect if the person that's starting the vehicle is drunk and prevent that vehicle from operating is close to being commercially viable.
Where are we 5 years from now? Where are we 10 years from now with driverless vehicles?
Yeah, these vehicles.
Get out your crystal ball.
you saw I was about to spin.
Yeah, I did.
They're moving at the speed of innovation, which means they could be here tomorrow. They could never be here at all. The truth is that we don't really know.
Okay.
In my crystal ball, I think we're going to see these vehicles deployed in higher numbers, but in this nice measured approach more expansively over the next 5 years. In 10 years, these are going to be common. Everyone, just like Uber and Lyft, in my opinion, is going to have ridden in them once. You're going to see them around more often. And I think people are going to come to really like them.
Are you excited about this?
I am.
Yeah.
And I think we should be. The mobility promises.
Let's just pause for a minute. And I said, what do you do the rest of the afternoon? You said, I'm going home to watch NASCAR.
It's true.
I mean,
it's true.
That's okay. Are you as excited about driverless vehicles as you are about NASCAR?
I'm probably more excited. And that's saying a lot because I literally have a William Byron bumper hanging up in my bedroom as a 34-year-old adult right now.
Good.
But I am, because this is going to be transformational from a safety perspective in terms of helping address the unacceptable carnage on our nation's roads. But for the elderly and people with those disabilities, the mobility prospects, and just the convenience, the deliveries of goods and meals, I think this is going to be a very, very promising, successful technology than one that was American made.
What's the big issue that you'd like to see government tackle? You talked about bills and you talked about regulations. Yeah. What's the thing that government needs to do to come around to make sure that, you can't fight progress, but to make sure we do it safely and correctly?
Absolutely.
And correctly is the key, I guess.
And correctly is where I would want them to land.
Yes.
Them being the federal government. So I think the key to regulating these technologies is ensuring that the rush to deployment doesn't become a race to the bottom, because the whole industry is not going to succeed if the public rejects it and it's not accepted, which the industry was on the verge of reaching that level in San Francisco at some point.
Yeah.
So I think rather than being reactive to safety incidents and trying to pull vehicles off the road, creating a regime in which autonomous vehicle developers and manufacturers have to proactively identify risks, show how their vehicle is able to manage and mitigate those risks with real evidence, and then provide that to regulators so we're addressing issues on the front end and ensuring that the technology is safe before it hits our streets.
This is the Good Government Show. We're talking with Daniel Greene from the National Consumers League. That was the easy part. The hard part's coming up.
Great. I'm ready.
All right. The Good Government Show is sponsored by Our. That's OUR for Our Community. Get involved. We hear that all the time from government leaders. Our co-brands with your government's name and logo. Your staff and the people you serve are connected and part of your community. From any device, your members provide reliable data and meaningful feedback. Ask a question like, do we want more parkland or better homeless services? More engaged conversations come through the Our app. Visit Ourco, that's OURCO.com, and book a demonstration. After you get done with this episode, hear more good government stories with our friends at How to Really Run a City. Former mayors Kasim Reed of Atlanta and Michael Nutter of Philadelphia, and their co-host, journalist and author Larry Platt, talk with guests and other mayors about how to really get stuff done in cities around the nation. Check them out where you're listening now or through their nonprofit news site, thephiladelphiacitizen.org/podcasts. Across America, there's a growing demand for leadership that delivers results. The Good Government Institute brings together proven ideas, principled leaders, and real-world solutions. We talk about what works. We talk about the best in government and in public service. On our flagship podcast, The Good Government Show, we talk about what makes good citizens. Our guests are government leaders who share great ideas and what public service means to all of us. Visit goodgovinstitute.org to learn more. That's goodgovinstitute.org. So, Daniel Greene from the National Consumers League, we have some questions we ask everyone here on the Good Government Show. And I know you have a background in government yourself. So, from your perspective now and your perspective then, define good government. What is it?
I think good government is addressing the needs of the people that could only be addressed by a governmental entity, being responsive to their needs. And I don't think it's per se the big wins. When I was working for Congress, what was most fulfilling to me was when a constituent would come with a pressing issue. We had a constituent who their family member died at a rail crossing in Longview, Massachusetts.
Please tell me they weren't hit by a driverless vehicle.
They were not hit by a driverless vehicle. Okay. They were hit by an Amtrak train. And they were apoplectic because it was the fifth death at that crossing. And yet no one had put at grade rail crossing technology that could have mitigated that threat. And Senator Markey and I worked together to ensure that that rail crossing had the appropriate technology in the future to properly warn and prevent those types of collisions from occurring in the future. And what was so fulfilling was that the constituent had zero expectations that we would do anything. They called to vent. They called because they were frustrated. And that's good governance. When you exceed the expectations of the people to meet a pressing public policy issue.
What would you like people to do if they are frustrated with government?
They have many rights to be frustrated with government. And I would encourage people not to become pessimistic about the government, not to be frustrated about its the challenges, its lack of responsiveness in certain instances, which I think people absolutely have the right to be frustrated with. Be part of the solution, engage, work with us to ensure that this government is more effective, efficient than ever.
What drew you to public service? And even though you're not actually, a government employee now, yep. you're government adjacent. What keeps you involved?
When I left Congress, I had a decision. I had many decisions and opportunities I had to make and could have made. And one of them was to work for profit as a lobbyist or doing a whole host of very lucrative work that wasn't fulfilling. And for me, that would have been a betrayal to my core values. The reason I got into public service was because I felt that my own individual sacrifice financially, certainly from the many sleepless nights and long hours I worked, was because I wanted to make the American people's lives better. And whether you can dedicate your career to that or just take some moments out of your life to try to assist others in your community, it makes our country stronger.
Who inspires you?
Wow, that's a really, really good question.
Do you have a political hero?
You know who does? It's less the political heroes. It's more the individual advocates who have dedicated their life to public service, particularly the victims and their families, whether of motor vehicle crashes or product safety issues, who were able to turn tragedy into a cause, into a mission to ensure that no one is befallen the same fate that they or their loved ones. Those are the folks who really motivate me.
So were you president of your high school class? Did you think you were always going to be in government?
I was not only was I not president of the class,
I didn't even go to class.
I was skipping way too much school senior year.
Oh, you were very busy.
Hardly. But, I was a senior during the 2008 presidential race and was very inspired by both candidates, their commitment to public service, and just the general notion that we, through government, can make this country better and people's lives better. And I was raised Jewish, this notion of tikkun olam, to make the world a better place, is a foundational element of that religion. It really has inspired me to pursue this career of public service to this day.
You served, I think you said 10 years in government. Now you're working with the National Consumers League. What would you like people to know about government that they don't know?
That is such a fantastic question. The people in the government, those who are often derided as unelected bureaucrats with their own motivation or mission, those are some of the most dedicated, patriotic Americans, the best subject matter experts who could not be more caring or dedicated to making this country strong. I had the great benefit of working closely with folks in many federal agencies that are often forgotten, that just become alphabet soup, but people who believe in these missions, who you will never know, who you will never interact with, but who are materially making your life better. And we have a federal government full of those people, and they should be honored and venerated.
Well, we call ourselves the voice of public service. And so we hope that people are listening, are realizing that what you say is true, because that's what we found here. What do you do for fun?
This is going to be a curveball. I am a Krav Maga instructor. I do Krav Maga, mixed martial arts on the side.
Krav Maga, what is that?
Krav Maga is a self-defense technique, a self-defense system that pulls all the different elements of various martial arts from Muay Thai, from BJJ, from Jiu-Jitsu, and creates a self-defense system for real-world fighting applications, whether it's a street fight, whether you're being attacked with a knife or with a gun or whatnot.
Have you been attacked with a knife or a gun?
I have
you put this
not.
into use?
I've been with a plastic knife and gun under training circumstances. In fact, just yesterday.
You're just itching for a fight to break out sometime, aren't you?
Absolutely. Okay. We in DC and those who work in these circles all need different coping mechanisms. Sure. Some go out and drink, some go out and socialize, and some do art. This is the crazy, chaotic coping mechanism that I developed, and I just love it.
So if you see Daniel Greene at a bar, he may look slight, but check out his picture. It'll be an extra on the website. You can have a look at the guy. You don't inspire fear, but yet I bet all your friends say,
pack a punch.
I bet all your friends go, hey, Dan, we're going out. You should come with us.
I'm happy to escort you any place you need to go.
Where do you get your news? How do you find out what's going on in the world?
Great question. I look at a lot of the tip sheets. Politico Pro's tip sheet in the morning, Washington Post, New York Times, some of the main outlets. And of course, we'll set Google alerts for various different policy matters. But Politico Pro and Politico really, and Punchbowl is a new one, but Politico Pro was really, really useful in much of the congressional staff and regulatory subject matter experts on the policy end read and digest that information. It's very helpful.
We are the Good Government Show. We always try to end on some good government. Tell me about something that the National Consumers League is doing that you're really proud of that's going to make people's lives better through government.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. There's so many things, so I'll be brief, but we're actively working on a number of different policies that would address some of the more pressing auto safety issues.
Okay.
That can be included in a forthcoming surface transportation reauthorization bill. One is that there is a ton of dangerous, violative motor vehicle equipment that is being sold on online marketplaces unbeknownst to the consumer. We're talking about fabric car seats, plastic motorcycle helmets, explosive Takata airbags, and whatnot. And NHTSA has zero authority over online marketplaces.
Oh.
They have to go to the manufacturer, who's often a fly-by-night actor in a foreign country that doesn't have a fidelity to the health and well-being of Americans, nor subject to
sell something online for half price and you go, I'll just buy that.
And the consumer's completely unaware. So we're working on a policy, and we have legislation that we've been working on with members to address that. Another issue is Safety is Not for Sale Act that Ranking Member Frank Pallone on the Energy and Commerce Committee has introduced in partnership with us. The bill would effectively say that automakers are beginning to bundle optional safety features with non-essential luxury items, whether they're relegating them to more expensive vehicle models, or saying if you want this advanced driver assistance system, you also have to have a fancy infotainment system upgrade or additional speakers or luxury seats. We're basically saying, listen, just don't do that. Just make a standalone safety option. Vehicle affordability has been a major issue, and we need to make these features more accessible.
Daniel Greene, you are the Senior Director and Consumer Protection and Product Safety for the National Consumer Consumers League. Did I get it right the second time?
Yes, you did.
I got it right the second time. It was a pleasure talking to you. I have learned more about driverless vehicles than I ever knew. So thank you for that. And I will let you go watch NASCAR.
It was a pleasure to be here. And I will say your podcast is now going to be on the list of areas in which I get my news. So it was really great to meet you. Appreciate it.
Well, see, you landed the plane. Thank you very much for that.
Of course.
Thank you. The Good Government Institute has a new partner, the Charles F. Kettering Foundation. I really like their podcast, The Context, and I bet you will too. They have a new series called Democracy Under Construction. The show is hosted by historian Alex Lovett, and he looks back at the first 250 years of U.S. history. Alex digs into the moments that have pushed us towards an inclusive democracy. You can find it wherever you're listening right now, or visit kettering.org and give him a follow. Want to hear more about good government? Check out another show I host, Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. I host the show with Brad Kavanaugh, Mayor of Dubuque, Iowa, and the immediate past president of the Iowa League of Cities. Together, we talk to leaders in Iowa cities. We talk about what works and what good government looks like in Iowa. Join us right here where you're listening now. That's Leading Iowa, Good Government in Iowa Cities. What if Lincoln hadn't been shot? What if World War I hadn't happened? Jim Ludlow, Good Government Show executive producer, explores both those ideas in 2 books. In Lincoln, Beyond the Bullet, he imagines that Lincoln lives. In Royal Cousins, he imagines what would have happened if 3 kings, all cousins, hadn't blundered their way into war. What if? Think about it. Go to goodgovinstitute.org/books and order a copy. Are you ready to take a ride? A ride with no driver? A surreal experience. That's how Dan Greene of the National Consumers League described his first driverless car ride. He said what amazed him most is how quickly he got used to it. I'll have to take a ride to see myself. Agree, disagree, think driverless cars are cool, think they're just wrong. Dan Greene says companies have invested billions of dollars in this technology, so clearly it's not going away. What we need are organizations like the National Consumers League to help government moderate and control the growth, create smart guidelines, and plan for the future of driverless cars. They're moving at the speed of innovation, Dan said. Make no mistake, they're coming. And finally, I got thrown for a loop when I found out I was sitting across from an actual martial arts master. And I learned about Krav Maga. I learned something new on every show. Well, I'll let you know how my first driverless car ride goes, because next time will be my first time. That's our show. Thanks for listening. Please like us and share us with your friends and review us right here where you're listening. And check out our website, goodgovernmentshow.com, for extras. Help us keep telling stories of good government in action everywhere. Join us again for another episode right here. I'm Dave Martin, and this is The Good Government Show. The Good Government Show is produced by the Good Government Institute, a nonprofit organization promoting civic engagement and civic education. All donations to the show help promote trust in government. You can donate at goodgovinstitute.org. That's goodgovinstitute.org. Executive producers are Jim Ludlow, Dave Martin, that's me, and David Snyder. Jason Stershik is our editor and producer. Join us again to hear good stories about our government right here on The Good Government Show.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.